Hi, welcome back to our class. This is week 5, and starting from this week, we are going to talk about gender and sexuality. And in this video, we are going to talk about the content covered in chapter 8 and 9, which is about gender and sexuality. And let's start the lecture. So first of all, let's talk about gender. Let's know about what topics and that this textbook wants to tell us about gender. So gender is not a sex or sexuality. So gender is a concept that we develop from socialization or cultural assimilation. It's an abstract concept that we gradually have when we grow up. So it's something inside of us, inside our mind. It's a subjective feeling of being male or being female. So female or male are genders. So female and male are different from men or women. So these words are slightly different. So gender is pretty subjective. If you think you're a man or male, you are man or male. And if you feel that you are female or male, female or woman, you are female. So sex is about the biological characteristics of the physical body. Sex, how to tell somebody's sex, because you can tell whether this person is biologically male or biological female. You can tell the biological features of that person's body. But gender is about perception or identity or feeling about the self. So we gradually have a concept of being female or being male in the process of socialization. So we actually learn that. It's not something that exists in the physical world. So sex exists in the physical world. But gender is something in our mind. And through learning, we can learn how to behave with a certain gender, for example, male or female. So if we think we are male, we behave in certain ways. If we think we are females, we behave in certain other ways. And the next question to know about is what is the difference? How different between females and males? The traditional view is that males are quite different from females, no matter it's about the psychological or emotional or biological. So in any sense, females and males are really, really different. And there's a saying that males and females are from different planets because they cannot understand each other. They are totally different animals. So that's the traditional view of females and males. But from some studies, these two genders are quite similar. So there's a hypothesis called the gender similarities hypothesis. It hypothesized that females and males are highly similar. First of all, they are all humans. All humans are really, really similar, no matter humans are males or females. And there's a research by Zell, Krizan, and Teeter in 2015. They studied 2,000 existing studies. And in those 2,000 studies, there are 12 million participants who joined those studies and confirmed that actually females and males are really, really similar. They're they're just humans after all, and they have a slight differences in terms of gender. They have a little bit different ways of thinking and behaving, and they have a little difference in their physical characteristics. So, uh, so actually, the females and males are really similar, actually. So here's a question for us to think about. So let's think about males or men. What do you think a man should be like? So if you think about a man, what a typical man or a man with really typical characteristics, what is he like? What are the features of that man? And the next questions to think about is, where do you get these beliefs? Yeah, so you can pause the video right now and think about the two questions. You can take notes, you can write down the characteristics that you think a man should have. So let's talk about stereotypes about gender. So stereotypes, I believe that we have learned what the stereotype is from the introduction to psychology class. But let's recap a little bit here. So stereotypes are beliefs that people have about a group of people with a certain characteristic. So here is a group of people. They share a common characteristics. For example, this group of people are males, or this group of people are females, or this group of people are whites, the race is white, all these people are white people, or this group of people are blacks, or these are black people. And the stereotype is a certain belief that this group of people, everyone in this group of people must have some kind of a characteristic, all of them. Right. So if this person has this, if this person belongs to this group, this person must have that characteristic. That's a stereotype. So stereotypes ignore the uniqueness of individuals. Stereotypes assume that everybody in that group has a certain feature, or everyone in the group is like that. So it underestimates the uniqueness of individuals. Oftentimes, why these people belong to one group, that phenomenon is created by our minds. So in reality, we are unique. We are so different from anyone. Everyone is different from anyone. So because our minds work in the way that we need to categorize people into different groups so that we can understand these people easily, more easily. So that's we created all kinds of groups like gender groups, racial groups, and all kinds of groups based on all kinds of standards. So we created stereotypes in our mind. And one kind of stereotype is about gender, about males and females. So gender stereotypes are beliefs about females and males' abilities, personality, and behavioral patterns. So basically in stereotypes, there's beliefs about, well, females should have this kind of beliefs, males should have those kind of beliefs, abilities, and females should have this kind of a personality, and males should have those kinds of personality. So these are gender stereotypes. So when I think about this question, what does a typical man look like? I can think of an image in the movie Terminator 2. I can think about that robot, the Terminator in that movie is a typical man. A typical man looks like this. This man is really muscular, has a lot of muscles, and wear the sunglasses and use weapons and wear the black jacket and ride motorcycles and doesn't say a word, very silent, or doesn't see a lot of stuff, has no emotions, does not show facial expressions to others, only behave, very assertive, very confident. So I think that's what this Terminator looks like or feels like to me. And this image was very popular at that time. This movie Terminator 2, I think was released like in 1990. Yeah, and at that time, like people were crazy about that movie, and I was really young, but I heard of this story. This movie was so popular at that time, and they were so impressed by this image to the Terminator. If you haven't watched this movie, you can know about the basic story of in that movie. So the actor Arnold Schwarzenegger acted as a robot coming from the future. So this Terminator, this robot, did some kind of time travel to nowadays, to the 1990s, and try to save the world and try to save this kid in this picture, because this kid was will be the key to save the world in the future. So in the future there will be like nuclear wars between machines and humans, and this kid will invent something, or like I forget the specific story, but this kid was is the key figure. So this Terminator used to be on the machine side, on the robot side, but this Terminator is captured by humans, and they recode the programs inside of this Terminator, and ask this Terminator to go back to the past and save this kid. So that's the basic story in Terminator 2. So this guy comes to nowadays world and find this kid and save this kid, because there are bad guys who want to get this kid and kill him. So and that is a very interesting movie. But the image created in that movie, this Terminator, I think he's a typical man with all kinds of characteristics that are so masculine or so like male. Yeah. So let's go to another slide. So what are the stereotypes about males? So the authors of the textbook summarize all kinds of the stereotypical views of males. So first of all, males are believed to be not showing emotions, not having emotions, not expressing emotions to other people. So basically, they are emotionally unavailable. So they do not show emotions to family. They do not receive emotions from the family. They do not have emotions generally. And another stereotype is that they are independent. So this stereotype is a little bit tricky because you may think that, oh, being independent is a good thing. Everyone should be independent. Why you think independent is a stereotype? Because this belief is very rigid. So it's good to be independent, but sometimes people are not independent, or sometimes people do not have the abilities to be totally independent. But the society expects them to be independent all the time. So this kind of a belief is very rigid, sometimes unrealistic. So sometimes the society expects every man to be totally independent at any time, and they must rely on themselves. They cannot seek social support. They cannot ask others for help. And yeah, the next stereotype is that the man should be powerful and aggressive. Everyone should be like that. So they must be physically powerful. They have more. They're stronger. They must be sexually powerful. They must be smarter. Names, namely, intellectually powerful. They must be richer than females. Namely, they must be financially powerful. So no matter in what degree, from what perspective, they must be more powerful than females. And they must be very, very aggressive. They're assertive. They want to have a lot of achievements in a career. They want to dominate women. They want to dominate others. They want to attack others in terms of communication or expressing viewpoints, or even physically, they must be aggressive. So these are really rigid beliefs about males. And the next one is that they cannot have fear. They must not be afraid of anything. But it's not real for everyone. So no matter they are females or males, everyone has fear. That's really normal emotion for every human being. But the society expects them to not have fear. So what are they gonna do? They hide their fears. They pretend not to have fear. They pretend that they do not have any fears. They do not afraid of anything. So yeah, so you can imagine that if one believes that, oh, I'm a man, I must have no fear, that belief may cause some kind of a psychological problems or behavioral problems. And the next stereotype is that a male does not show the true self to others. So the inner self is hidden by others. Other people cannot see the true self, the inner self, that man. Oh. And also the society often expects the man not to have senses or bodily awareness. There shouldn't be aware of physical symptoms. So if there's pain, there is like some kind of fatigue or all kinds of physical symptoms on their bodies, they are not expected to feel them. They're not expected to have reactions to these physical symptoms, especially pain. So oftentimes the children are educated, especially boys. Boys are educated not to have reaction, not have strong reactions to pains. When there's pain, when some parts of the bodies get hurt, do not cry, tolerate that and continue our activities, for example, in sports or something like that. And also another stereotype is that the man must succeed at work. I think it's the same with the powerful and aggressive stereotype. So men must pursue greater achievements at work in their career. So that's also a stereotype. Also, men should deny all the feminine qualities, such as expressing emotions to others, such as being good at interpersonal relationships. So all these are considered to be feminine qualities. Feminine qualities. Yes, the subtitles are right. So men shouldn't have those qualities. And the last one is really interesting. So the society expects that between men, there shouldn't be physical contact. Men should not have a physical contact with another man. That's really interesting because probably physical contact between two persons is considered as the feminine quality. So all these are the stereotypes about males. And the males oftentimes have pressures because of these stereotypes, because the society and other people expect them to have certain behaviors, expect them to show some qualities, expect them not to show some qualities. So what is wrong about those stereotypes? One negative outcome that brings to men is called gender role strain. So because these stereotypes, these beliefs are often unrealistic, often contradictory, and cannot be attained. It means that men cannot do that, cannot make it, cannot behave totally consistent with those stereotypes. So that causes gender role strain. And also you can often see that men are not expected to show emotions to others, not have abilities to have skills in building interpersonal relationships. So these stereotypes are not good for developing relationships, not good for men to build good relationships with others. So that causes a gender role strain because the men may have burnout because the long-term chronic stress that these stereotypes put on them. So they are burned out, they are strained because of the gender role stereotypes. And also, these stereotypes are against human nature. So what is in the human nature? In the human nature there is a true self. There is emotions, there's love. There is a hope to build relationships with others. So that is the content in the human nature. But these stereotypes actually cut off the path to the inner self, make them cannot get access to the true self inside of their heart. They cannot adjust themselves because these stereotypes are really rigid. And also, these stereotypes make them to lose the ability to love and receive love. And also, these stereotypes bring a sense of have to, rather than want to, right? So there's these stereotypes often ask a man to do something, and the men feel like they're controlled by these stereotypes. They must do this. They have to do this. They must. They have to be like this. It is about. It is about controlling. It's not about choice. It is not about volition. So that's why these stereotypes bring a lot of negative outcomes to men, because a lot of these stereotypes are against human nature. All the males, as humans, they are, first of all, they are humans. They are not something else at the beginning, at the first place. So if these stereotypes are against the nature of males, of all humans, these stereotypes may bring problems. So what is the right way to expect human, to expect a man, to expect males? So as a male, we need to behave, we need to talk, we need to think, in alliance with human nature. So what is in human nature? There's love, there's a relationship, there is understanding about the self, there is a sense of want to instead of have to, and there's more stuff. So we need to love, we need to receive love, we need to express love to other people, we need to build relationships with other people, we need to know about ourselves, we need to know about why we are like this, we need to know about what we really want in the inner self, inside our heart. And there are some beliefs that might apply to everyone, not only males, such as independence, such as success at work. So all these beliefs are actually can be good notions, good beliefs. And they do not only apply to males, but females can be independent, because independence in general is very useful and beneficial feature, such as the success at work. Women also can get success at work. So all these characteristics can apply to males too. And here is another question for you to think about. Let's talk about women. So what do you think a woman should be like? Where do you get these beliefs? So you can think about these two questions. You can write down the beliefs that you have about women, and think about where to get these beliefs from. Why do you have those expectations on women? Okay, so let's talk about the stereotypes of females. So what do women should be like? Warm, very warm to others, express a lot to others, talk about a lot to others, express a lot of emotions and feelings to others. And a woman should be very nurturing, take care of kids, take care of other people's feelings, and take care of all kinds of people. So we can see that women's life is often defined as a role to support others. So woman is often viewed as someone who support other people, support their kids, support their husbands, support their fathers and mothers. support their colleagues and so forth. So oftentimes women are not expected to like be assertive, to be aggressive, to own a career or to dominate in the relationship. They're often seen or considered to be warm, expressive, support others. They cannot be assertive. They cannot be independent because they must support others. They must rely on a man, husband, father, and so forth. They cannot do something that is not consistent with their female role. In other words, they cannot deviate from their female role. They cannot do something that is too deviate from the expectations of a female. There must be they must be interested in relationships than in professional accomplishments. In other words, they must focus on relationships. They must develop themselves to have good skills in building relationships. They cannot have a very big passion in pursuing achievements in professions, at work, or in their professional career. And there might be other stereotypes. You can talk about them. You can think about what other stereotypes of females. So generally, all these female stereotypes define females as a role to support others, not a role who are dominant, who have breakthroughs, who have a lot of achievements in the society, but they are defined as the role to like rely on others, support others, and all that stuff. Because of these stereotypes and because of the something happened in the society, there's a systematic bias about females and males in the society, so that the females face a lot of difficulties in the society. For example, one really famous example is there's a glass feeding effect for females at workplace. So what is a glass ceiling? So it's like if you climb the ladder, you climb upward. You get higher and higher and higher, and suddenly there's a city that is made of glass above you. You cannot climb higher. You cannot get to a higher place. So that is called a glass ceiling effect. And women are more likely than men to meet this glass ceiling. They cannot go to the higher level. They cannot go to the highest professional levels usually. For example, in a company, they cannot be the CEO. They cannot be the final boss of the company. In the country, they cannot be the mayor. They cannot be the Senate. They cannot be the president of this country. Oftentimes, in history, almost all the mayors and the presidents and the CEOs of every companies are males. There are really less women who are actually can go to the highest professional level. And the next difficulty is that they may face discrimination at workplace. For example, they get less salary, and also because women can be pregnant for a very long time, like for at least 8 or 9 months, and they can get the second child, and that's another period of being pregnant. So they cannot work during those periods. So that's one reason they get discrimination at the workplace, because a lot of the employers do not like hire females who are pregnant, or females who can be pregnant. They can ask in the interviews, they can ask this female, like, are you single? Are you married? Like, how many kids do you have? Like, are you going to have kids with your husband in the future, in the near future? Something like that. They may know this kind of information when they try to hire this female. So they might not choose to hire this female because of that, because they might have the females might be absent for a long period because of a pregnancy. So that's the discrimination that the female employers face at workplace. And also, another difficulty is that for females, they may not reach a work-family balance. So they cannot balance their work and life. They need to have the family life. They have their personal lives. They need to take care of children. Their children go to kindergarten. They go to elementary schools. And children have all kinds of stuff going on. And they need to cook, or need to take care of their husbands. And also at the same time, they need to work. So they have too many roles at the same time. Because the traditional expectation of females is that the females need to do the housework, need to take care of children, need to cook, and all that stuff. But at the same time, in a society nowadays, everyone can go to work. Females can go to work, and the males can go to work as well. So oftentimes, nowadays, the females often face to need to deal with a lot of roles at the same time. So that's all the difficulties that females meet, and there can be other difficulties as well. I'm not a female, so I'm not really familiar with that part, but you can think of it if you see other stories, or if you have personal experiences of that, you can think about those. But right now, the situation is changing. Is more and more friendly to females, no matter it's the system or the atmosphere or the culture of the society. Females got more opportunities. So here is a photo that combines 10 images of 10 highest paid women CEOs in 2016. You can see all the names of these ladies on the right. There is the CEO from PepsiCo, whose name is Indra Nooyi. Here's a CEO of Yahoo. There's CEO of IBM. There's CEO of, let's see, Lockheed Martin. So you can see all these companies are giant companies, global companies. They are really famous, but their CEOs are females. This is evidence that female CEOs or female employees can be in the highest position in a certain organization or company. So nowadays it's changing. And there are a lot of other stories, like you can see a lot of female soldiers who join the war. There are female soldiers in Israel because in Israel they're short of soldiers, and they must have a really strong army to fight against other countries. So they recruit females as well as soldiers. So the traditional stereotype about male is that they cannot be soldiers. They cannot participate in the military industries or military stuff, military related stuff. But nowadays they can be soldiers, they can be generals. Okay, so next big part of today is about sexuality. So sexuality, that is not about gender. So gender is a cultural concept. That is something that we have in our mind. That's a like abstract concept in our mind. But sex is something physical. And sexuality is about something sexual. Let me see. Sexuality is about sexes, is about sexual behaviors, and all related topics. So what does sex do to us? So what if people have sex? What are the benefits? So what are the reasons for why people have sex? So there are several benefits. First of all, sex can benefit the physical well-being. People can be physically healthier if having sex. So moderate level sex. And also they can enjoy the time. They can be happy. So there can be joy and pleasure. There can be well-being in terms of their psychological mechanism or psychological well-being. And also sex helps the man and women to build up intimacy. And also sex is a way to express love, romantic love. Sometimes we need to express love. So sex can be a very intensive way to express really strong love. And sex may bring harms to people also, because sometimes sex can be a way to control over the other person. So sometimes people use the sex control over the other person, like if you don't do something, I will not have sex with you, or if you don't do something, I will do something to you during the sex, something like that. And also sometimes people who have sexual desires or who have sexes with other people may be really guilty because they think that they shouldn't do this, they shouldn't have these ideas, but they have, so they are guilty, or shame, or anxiety. They're anxious about having sex, or they're anxious about not having sex. And these are the potential harms that sex may bring to people. And next topic about sex is how to communicate about sex. How do we talk about sex to other people? So communication about sex can be a way to build up the mutual empathy. So we can be empathic toward each other mutually. So that is the awareness that each partner cares for the other and knows this care can be reciprocated. mutual empathy is usually happen. Mutual empathy usually happens between the people who are in the romantic relationship or in the marriage. So the man and woman, husband and wife, aware that they can build empathy toward each other. They can be empathic toward each other through sex. And they can know that they take care of the other. They know that the other also takes care of them. That is called mutual empathy. But only sex is not enough. Healthy sexuality actually involves relationships. Sexuality is not only about sex itself. Sexuality involves other parts, about the relational part, that is about interpersonal part, about the emotional part, and feelings and all that. So good sexuality involves more than just the sex. It involves relationships, involves mutual empathy, involves exchanging feelings and taking care of the other. And mutual empathy may bring satisfaction in the relationship. After all, in a relationship, we need to have, we need to be taken care of. We need to receive love from the other. But the communication about sex, there are cultural differences, because in some cultures, people cannot talk about topics about sex. Sex is a taboo, is something they cannot talk about. And in some other cultures, it is pretty open. Sexual topics are pretty open to communicate. And people can talk about sex topics with strangers even on the street. So the standard for talking about sex is different in different cultures. And the next topic about sex is that people oftentimes have some beliefs and conceptions and values about sex or about sexuality, about sexual behaviors. So all these are sexual values, the values about sex, about how to have sex, about who to have sex with, about how to communicate about sex, about appropriate sexual behaviors. People are free to have different kinds of sexual values, but the key point here from the authors of textbook is that it is better to align sexual behavior with the value system. If you have certain values, it is better that your sexual behavior is consistent with those values. So what you do is congruent or consistent with what you believe. You believe something and you do something. And you do something, make sure that what you do is aligned with what you believe. Otherwise, if what you do is different from what you believe, that will result in problems, psychological problems, behavioral problems, such as cognitive dissonance. So I believe that you have learned what is a cognitive dissonance in Introduction to Psychology class. So with cognitive dissonance, people do not feel well. They are not comfortable. They must do something to reduce that cognitive dissonance, reduce that the discomfort. So they might have problematic values. They change their mind. those values are problematic and they might change their behaviors. Those behaviors might be problematic as well. Here is the suggestions from the authors of the textbook. So when we have sex in an adult relationship, we need to think about these questions carefully and clearly. So these questions can be, do I really want to pursue a sexual relationship with this person at this time? So at this moment, with this person at this moment, do I really want to pursue that relationship? Do I really want to do that? That's a question we need to think about beforehand. And what are the possible emotional consequences of getting sexually involved? So we need to think about the consequences, the behavioral consequences, and the emotional consequences. Are there any commitments? Yeah, so if you don't have commitment with that person, think about it. How consistent is my decision with my values? So think about this question. What kind of value system do I have? Do these decisions, do these behaviors are consistent with my values? So we need to think about these questions before we really engage in sexual behaviors or engage in sexual relationships. And next part, we can talk about some wrong beliefs about sex or misconceptions about sex. So oftentimes, as I just mentioned, sometimes their behaviors are not consistent with their beliefs, so that they have guilt, they have shame. One situation is that sometimes people have sexual desires or sexual feelings toward women. These ideas, these desires, these feelings conflict with their values. Their values are like they cannot have any sexual ideas or sexual desires toward anyone, but they have. That's more about biological. They cannot control them, so that they have guilt. So these values might not be realistic because, it's biological. People are just have sexual desires toward the same sex or another the opposite sex. But if we have a value that I cannot have any sexual desires toward anyone, that might not be realistic because that value is contradicting with our biological nature. And another situation is that some people may feel guilty over masturbation. So masturbation is the behavior of stimulating one's own genitals for sexual pleasure. So sometimes people believe that they shouldn't have masturbation. They either shouldn't have any sexual desires, or they must have sex with other people instead of self-stimulation. So that's why they have guilty over masturbation. I think the masturbation is viewed as normal, as not something bad. I mean, if there's masturbation, if there is a too frequent masturbation, that might cause healthy problems. But masturbation, this behavior itself, is not viewed as sick or abnormal. It is quite normal, actually. Yeah, it is quite normal actually. Uh, let's go to the next misconception. Yeah, there can be other misconceptions about sex. For example, if I allow myself to be sexual, I will get into trouble. That's nonsense. It this belief must come from like their parents or the cultural message. It's okay to be sexual. The next one is if I am sexually attracted to another person, I won't be able to refrain from acting on it. It's nonsense either because uh, thinking is not doing. You can control yourself for sure. We need to have confidence in ourselves, controlling ourselves. My partner should know that my partner should know what I need intuitively without my asking. That is not realistic as well because people cannot know about another person that easily. They can guess what the other wants from facial expressions, from behaviors, from other stuff, from communication. But we cannot connect our brains together. So we need to talk about that. If we want something, we talk about it. We cannot just expect the other to know about what we want quickly without communicating. The next one is being attracted to someone of the same sex is abnormal. Uh, homosexuality is viewed as normal nowadays. It used to be viewed as abnormal many years ago, but people found that homosexuality is a common phenomenon in humans. It's not about sickness or about diseases or abnormal something weird. Uh, you know what? The the founder of positive psychology, Martin Seligman, he used to do research about finding the root causes of homosexuality when he was young. He like in the 70s, he published papers about how to cure homosexuality, how to find the real reasons for why people have homosexuality. So at that time, homosexuality was viewed as a disease, as some kind of a genetic deficit. But nowadays, scientists and all the people in the society found that homosexuality is a normal phenomenon that exists in the population. About 5 to 10% of the population is homosexual, no matter in what countries, in what cultures, in what societies. 5 to 10% is really stable. The next misconception is that the more physically attractive a person is, the more sexually exciting he or she is. That is also nonsense. Uh, being physically attractive is different from the real feeling of that person. The next one is with the passage of time, sexual relationships are bound to lose a sense of excitement. That is also nonsense because the data does not support it. So people may still have excitement, may still have passion in a very long-term sexual relationship. So next one, we talk about intimacy and the relationships between sex and intimacy. Here's another question. Does a sexual relationship need intimacy? What do you think? You can talk about it with another person or with yourself. Does a sexual relationship really need intimacy? Is it possible that a sexual relationship does not have any intimacy? Okay, so what is the intimacy? Intimacy is defined as a feeling that there's a deep level of caring for another person. Intimacy comes from the relationship between two persons. If I have intimacy on you, I have a deep level of caring for you. I really want to care about you. I really want to take care of you. That feeling is so deep. That is intimacy. So people generally think that the love and affection are important in sexual relationships. So people generally feel that there are cases that people just want to have sex in a relationship. They do not have any love or affection or intimacy. They do not take care of each other. They do not care about what the other is doing or how the other is going. But generally, people have love and intimacy in sexual relationships. But people may have sex without love. And in a lot of cases, people may have sex with love. So people may have sex with or without love. They both exist. So that is the relationship between intimacy and sex. And so there's one example about sex without love, sexual relationship without love. There's a phenomenon called friends with benefits. Yes, that's the right phrase. Friends with benefits. What kind of benefits? Sexual benefits. They are friends. They have sex. They do not have intimacy. So their friendship is not about like romantic love. That is not about love or intimacy. They do not have a lot of intimacy. They just want to benefit each other. So they have sexual relationships, but they are friends. So that's one example of having sex without love. So that's all the stuff for today's lecture. So here are some key points to know about. So first of all, we need to know what is gender, the differences between gender and sex. And we can know about the stereotypes of men and women. So we could talk a lot about the stereotypes of men, and we talk a lot about stereotypes of women. And we need to know about gender role strength. That is a negative outcome from those gender stereotypes. And we need to know what is mutual empathy and what is sexual values and intimacy. And we can know about the misconceptions about sex. So some wrong beliefs about sex. Okay, so let's talk about the journal assignment for this week. One of our assignments for this week, week 5, is about journal 8. So in journal 8, the journal is about gender and sexuality. So first of all, please reflect on the stereotypical gender traits that you believe and how these beliefs affect your life. So please answer the two questions. First, if you are female, please describe one or two stereotypical female traits that you believe. And these traits may or may not discuss in the class. If you are male, please describe one or two stereotypical male traits that you believe. So if you are a girl, please describe one or more female traits that are stereotypical. And if you are a boy or man, please describe one or more stereotypical male traits. And the second question is about your reflection on how this or these two stereotypical traits affect your life. So in the second question, talk about the influences of these two or one traits. This one or two stereotypical traits may affect your personality, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, interpersonal relationships, and other aspects. You can talk about any aspects that how they affect your life. The next two questions are about sexuality. So that specifically, those are about values of sexuality. So question 3 is, what values about sexual behavior do you have? You can talk about 1, 2, or 3 such values. So you can talk about values about sexual behaviors that you have. And the next question is, by far, to what degree your behavior has been consistent with the values that you hold. So the third question is about the values that you have about sexual behavior. You can talk about 1, 2, or 3. And the fourth question is about your behavior. So whether your behavior are consistent with the values that you hold. So you can talk about this in this journal assignment. And you have 1 week to finish this. And each question is 3 points. So there are, one question is 3 points. And you have 1 week to finish this assignment, and it will be due in April 25th. Okay, so that's it for journal for chapter 8 and 9, gender and sexuality. So let's go to, you can go to the next video to see the lecture about work and recreation, and see you there.